Good evening, Avacal. I am Leamla Sav Euphraios daughter, and I am the moderator tonight for Ask the Peers Pelican Edition. I've been a member of the Pelican for 10 years. We would like to begin by acknowledging that Avacal is in Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11 territories, the Métis Nation, and Nunavut settlement area. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Inspired by the Order of Chivalry and the Order of the Laurel, the companions of the Order of Pelican wish to continue the frank and open conversations with the populace on how to move forward to make the SCA a safe and inclusive place for everyone. We asked for your questions and you responded to that request. Please know that your questions were heard and discussed by the entire council. The panelists that are answering may give their personal views, but their answers are based off of what the entire Pelicans Council discussed. Tonight's panel, who will be answering your questions, will be introducing themselves.
Hello, Avacal. I am Baron Fial Leoderson. I am a member of the Order of the Pelican and have been for approximately 3 years. I think COVID's got me kind of screwed up on that. I served as Baron of Mergen Wood for 4 years. I was a part of the membership that brought the kingdom to Avacal, or turned Avacal into a kingdom on your behalf, and it was a great honor. I think it's your turn, Catherine.
Sorry about that. I thought Fergus was next. My name's Mistress Catherine, and I've been a Pelican since 2015. I was actually the last Pelican maid in Ontario for Avacal.
Hi, Avacal. I'm Fergus. I've been a Pelican for about a year and a half or so. I am a member of the Order of Chivalry as well. I had the distinct pleasure of serving Avacal as their 8th king about a year and a half ago. That's pretty much all I do. So I see you.
And with that, we will begin with our first question. Our first question tonight is, how does the Order of Pelicans see themselves moving forward to promote diversity, both in their order and the kingdom in general? And to answer that will be Baron Fial.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Diversity in the order. It comes from having a diverse population to begin with. And the diversity in the kingdom will beget diversity in the Avacal Pelicans. But not just the Order of Pelicans responsible for that. We're all responsible for promoting diversity by being a safe space for Black and Indigenous people of color, women, LGBTQ, 2S, and the differently abled. By being open, a lot of us are involved in stewarding events as Pelicans, where we fulfill other roles as Pelicans. We're marshals. We serve, and so in that we can help by being mindful of the needs of those special groups and making sure that we have a safe space at our events, at our business meetings, at any place where people in the SCA gather. It's all about being open and being mindful. It's a huge thing nowadays with what's been going on in our world, and going forward, the Pelican should be no different than anyone else. We should be working on being mindful of what we do and what we say, and making sure that our game is accessible to all.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Thank you. Our second question tonight, does the Order of Pelicans see dealing with conduct issues or the root causes of them as part of the service of Pelicans, such as discrimination, sexism, bullying, etc.? The first panelist to answer will be Fergus.
So in short, yes. It is the job of a peer, it is the job of a leader in the community that we are to help be part of the solution. Long answer is, how do we do that? Society in general doesn't know that. We're struggling. We'll always struggle. We'll try to get better all the time. But right now, what can we do? First is, if you see something, we say something. We're leaders. Our part of our job is to help people through whatever process there is for grievances. It's our job to call people out on poor behavior, be them peers, be them members of the populace, be them members of the public who even come out to a demo. We are there to help protect, to help people feel comfortable, and to help guide them in whatever quest they have for justice within the SCA, or if they just want to have a place to feel safe. So is it a job of the Pelicans? Yes, it's a job of peers as leaders, but it's also a job of everybody in the SCA. How does that look? Well, we do things like this. We do things like we reach out to you, we answer your questions as best we can, and we let people know that we will not stand for things like sexism, bullying, discrimination, racism, or anything like that. And I would like to think that any Pelican out there would see it as a moral duty, not even just as a Pelican, but as a human being, to take a good stance against these things. I don't know what more I can add. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The second person to answer will be Fial.
Thank you. Fergus, I liked what you had to say, and I think I'll build on that a little bit. When we traditionally think of conduct and dealing with conduct, what went to my mind in this question is more of a police force type issue. And a Pelican is not trained to be a policeman. I think by being a peer, I think my obligation is to be a good citizen, but I don't think I can be the policeman or the judge or the jury for any conduct issues. But I can, like Fergus said, I can call out when I see behavior that's unbecoming of anyone. And I would think that when someone sees that in me, that they would do the same. When they made me a Pelican, or when I became a Pelican, or when I was recognized as a Pelican, however you want to say it, there was no magic that occurred. I didn't have a magic wand strike me in the forehead. What I did have is a whole bunch of new responsibility, and I'm imperfect, and I hope that I can deal with that. And I see that, I see examples of great people in our order, and that gives me hope. And that's who I want to emulate. And for this particular thing, as Orders of the Pelican, I think we're called to be better citizens. And by being a better citizen, I think we can call out things such as discrimination and bullying and sexism. And I don't think we'll be perfect. I know I'm not. And, but I will try.
Thank you. Really good answers. Thank you. Our next question. Do you feel there is value in a Grand Council meeting where all the separate peerage councils come together to discuss and make plans for the future of our kingdom? The first person to answer will be Fergus.
All right. I'm going to preface this is my personal opinion, because there's disagreement of how much value people see in this, but personally I say no. I can see it's a good idea to bring some cross disciplines, maybe bridge a couple of gaps, but logistically speaking, it would be a nightmare. We already have, I'm a member of the chivalry, I'm an officer, and I'm a noble, so I go to 4 meetings already in the SCA. We start adding a 5th one in there, it's going to be difficult even just for scheduling. As well as we probably have about 40 or so, maybe even 50 active peers in the society. If we start getting 50 people together into one room, you're going to have trouble getting heard, and we'll end up just hearing from the same couple of people. And I don't think it will actually accomplish what everybody wants it to. What we do right now is the king and queen are actually the ones who bridge the different councils. We have the option to speak to them about anything we want about any candidate on any council. It is our right as peers to bring that up to them. So at any time, I am perfectly comfortable going to talk to the Crown about an apprentice if I want an apprentice, or talking to the Crown about an issue I have with another council and hope that they bring it up on that council. They'll make the decision in their wisdom whether or not they want to do it. But I think having a massive group of people together will not accomplish much. The other advantage we have being the kingdom we are is I know most peers and most councils personally, and I have absolutely no issue going up and talking to them about an issue I might have or something that is happening on the council. And I think most of them have no issue coming up to me as well. So in short, good idea, but I think in practice, I don't think it would be as valuable as it seems on paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi. Similar to Fergus, this is going to be my personal opinion. And as somebody who might be inclined to facilitate the logistical nightmare of a grand council meeting, he stole my phrase of logistical nightmare. That's assuming that it's in practice if the intent is to have the meeting in person. I like the idea of having something similar to a Crown Council weekend, and all of the discussions are moderated and happen online. And it makes it more accessible to everyone who wishes to participate, regardless of where they live in the kingdom. That being said, part of the question regarded the future direction of Avacal. And I think that when it comes to the future direction of Avacal, I don't think that that should be a discussion that only includes peers and nobles. I think every citizen in Avacal should have the opportunity to weigh in on SCA issues that they feel are important to them and the future direction of Avacal. Whatever form that takes, whether it's a census or an online moderated general discussion, is up to the Crown to decide. But I think that when it comes to the future direction of Avacal, we all have a hand in it, and we should be all part of that conversation. Thanks.
Thank you for those answers. Our next question: how does the order evaluate service mastery? For example, set the bar. Catherine will answer that question for you.
Okay, so mastery of service. Incredibly subjective. However, Kapora outlines the general requirements of a patent of arms or a peerage, along with section 8.1.4C1, which specifically refers to the members of the Order of the Pelican, in which members of the Order of the Pelican may choose to swear fealty but are not required to do so. The candidate must have attained the standard of service to the society or any of its branches equal to that of his or her or their prospective peers, which is above and beyond that normally expected of members of the society. This is a norm-based evaluation. We need to compare the candidate to what the norm of the Pelicans are doing, either as shire leaders, as kingdom officers, long-standing service in general. We do and ask for assistance outside of kingdoms if the person either does work there online or have lived or served in other kingdoms. We ask others who do similar service. All gives a good idea of what the person has done. So to break it down into more accessible terms, Master Thorvald likes to reference Edward the Stuffy, who summed it up approximately for the Ontier Pelicans, which has, I believe, influenced the Avacal Pelicans, in that they demonstrate administrative brilliance or changing the kingdom in a major, I hope, positive way, or a heck of a lot of good service. A Pelican should be a person with the skill or knowledge to provide helpful activity or aid. The key part is helpful. So if we end up with hurt people in the wake, it often creates more work for others. And sometimes we end up with less members or fewer people willing to volunteer in the future, which hurts everyone's enjoyment of the SCA. There's no one service fits all. Not all service matches everyone. We all have very different skills, sets of skills and working styles. Some things are better for some people. Some people work best on a project by project basis. Some people work well with specifically outlined and scheduled deadlines. Some just like something that can be done at a single event, like working gate, for example. Each is very useful and valued in each way. All of these different elements can be provided for a candidate who is being considered. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. Our next question is, when the Order of Pelican has determined someone has met the necessary level of skill knowledge, what are the last questions criteria that the order asks or feels must be met before the individual is to be elevated? Our first panelist to answer will be Fial.
That's a good question. And the fun part of me wants to say, I wonder what they'll bring to their first meeting. But in seriousness, some of the things that we wonder amongst ourselves is the word fame, how the person will be received that is gaining this accolade. If they are only in one area and do not ever move to another area, how would they be received? How are they going to fit in when they're expected almost to look at things at a kingdom or an SCA society level? And how is that going to affect them? Another thing that we ask is, where are they going to fit in this journey? Because it is a journey. Pelican's not a destination. It's not the end. It's actually pretty close to the beginning. We wonder if this peerage will be a good fit for them, if they even want the peerage. And there are some people who do not want this job. And the last thing is to remind everybody is that the Pelicans, the order, recommend elevation. They don't grant it. Elevation is granted by the king and queen, by the crown. The crowns decide who will be a pelican. We have a say, we have words, but the crown does not have to listen to us. So at the end of the day, it's their decision. And then, of course, we talk about whether they bring donuts or wine or what they'll bring. So thank you.
Thank you, Fial. Our next panelist to answer that question for you is Catherine.
Okay, so similar to what Fial has mentioned, the Crown is the one who recognizes and elevates candidates. Our primary role is to evaluate candidates so that we can provide good advice to the Crown. Whether or not they elevate that person is entirely up to the Crown's discretion. And this is a really tough question because candidates are evaluated on an individual basis and on individual merits. So it's not just one last question. There are usually a number of them. What else do they do in the SCA? In my role as an advisor to the Crown regarding the matters of service, I feel we're looking for future leaders in the community. Will this person represent the kingdom, the Crown, the order, and the members well? While Pelicans are not required to swear fealty, the person being considered should be willing and able to fulfill their role as an advisor to the Crown. If this isn't possible, this is not possible if they don't respect the Crown. Can we send a new person to them for help? That's critical. Have their overall efforts caused more good than harm? And frankly, and to me more importantly, personally, have they learned from their mistakes? No one is perfect, but how people move forward from mistakes that they've made tells me a lot about this candidate and what their future holds for them. Thanks.
Thank you. Really good answers. Thank you. Our next question is, conflicts between peers seem to get resolved quickly with mutual respect. This doesn't seem to happen between peers and non-peers. How will the order help improve respectful discussions so they don't result in harmful conflict? Our first panelist to answer will be Fergus.
Right. So this question's a little odd to me in some ways. I am fairly classless when I meet people. I mean that in its fullest term. Like, I actually don't pay attention to class. So I've never actually had this issue before I was a peer. This is full disclosure. That's my own personal thing, but I understand I'm not a good bar for this. I also think that part of the reason that peers seem to resolve issues without conflict is a lot of peers have been playing in the SCA for a long time. So there's a lot of personal relationships built up between people who are in the different peerages. So I'm not entirely sure it's because they're peers that they doesn't descend into conflict so much as we might have to look into, are they friends? Do they have years or decades even of relationship behind them, and that's why it resolves. Now, to answer the question of what we can do to make sure that this doesn't happen, because I fully admit that probably happens, is since I became a peer, this has actually really changed how I interact with people. And I need to understand that there is a power differential between a peer and a non-peer. Often it's perceived. I've never really felt it, and I try my best not to actually push it on people, but I do know that there is a barrier there. So the onus is on the peer, Pelican specifically in this one, as the person who is on the higher end of that power differential, to make sure it doesn't descend into kind of any adversarial role. I think we need to be extraordinarily conscious that even the smallest words that we use not only can cause offense, but the person may not want to object because there is that power differential. It comes down to us just being cautious and careful and understanding that even though we may not have meant it that way, or any kind of push from us might be amplified by our rank, not necessarily by who we are. And if we're not conscious of that, it will lead to questions like this. And we really need to understand that. And I think some of us do, some of us may not. So I thank the person for asking that question, because I think the council will now think about it more. Thank you.
Thank you, Fergus. Our next panelist to answer is Catherine.
So conflict, this is, again, personal opinion, is greatly coloring my response to this. Conflict resolution is tough. It's tough in your personal life, it's tough in your professional life, it's tough in the SCA, it's tough when you genuinely don't like the person or you care about them a great deal. When conflict situations arise between peers, as Fergus mentioned, there's often the advantage and the benefit of long-standing working or personal relationships between the people that are in conflict, and this familiarity with others and others' communication style makes it easier at times to resolve conflict situations. That being said, sometimes they aren't successful in resolving their conflict situations, but they act in a professional manner and they go their separate ways. I believe that we as peers have a responsibility to do our best in not making assumptions, or to avoid making assumptions, and to encourage and to be open to discussions so that we may continue to grow and share the opportunity to learn something new. We're not always right, we're human. In conflict situations, it's a breakdown in communication, and I think that those are things that we can acquire the skills to be more equipped with. And as a peer, I feel that, as Fergus said, we have a responsibility to be mindful of our communication and to the perceived imbalance of power, in that someone may not feel comfortable in approaching me if they have a problem with some of my behaviors, and so if somebody is approaching them on their behalf, how do I handle that? I would go to the person, with the person who's come to me, I would bring them with me to talk to the person about what the conflict situation is. Not only to have a witness, but also to have a friendly face for them if they felt uncomfortable in approaching me in trying to resolve some kind of conflict situation they have with me. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question is, I have heard more than 2 pelicans say, when asked to perform a service, that they are not that kind of pelican. Are there different kinds of pelicans? And if not, how do you advise one responds when hearing that from a pelican? Our first panelist to answer will be Fergus.
All right. Short answer, yes, there's different kinds of pelican. This is a bad joke, and it'd be frustrating to hear, and I understand. Yes, there are different kinds of pelicans in the fact that we all have our aptitudes. For example, if you want to help running, I don't know, youth combat, or you need somebody to set gate, or you need somebody to help clean up the hall, I can do. If you want somebody to autocrat an event, I'll help you find another pelican who can help guide you through that, because I'm not good at it. So yes, there are different kinds of pelicans. Yes, we all kind of go towards our own little niche. Some people are good online, some people are not. Some people like doing things at events. As for this comment, it's a bad joke. That's all it is. It's often used as somebody to wave off, essentially saying they can't help for whatever reason. Either they're too busy, they don't have the aptitude for it, they don't have the time for it. Well, I already said time, or one of many other reasons. How do you respond when somebody says that? Essentially, they're kind of politely saying no. So you kind of have to take it as a no. But if you know the person well, I would actually ask them why, or ask if they know a pelican that could help. I can push you off to any number of pelicans who would love to tell you how to run an event, who would love to tell you how to do many of the holes that I have in my own service. Just because we're pelican for service doesn't mean that we can do it all. To dial it back to fighting, somebody asked me to fight with a greatsword, I'll probably tell them I'm not that kind of knight, because I can tell them the basics, but there are better knights for it. I understand it's frustrating. It is a self-depreciating joke and a way to say no. We should probably stop making it and be a little more helpful. I will accept that. We really should. But if they say they're not that kind of pelican, accept your no and ask if they can find another pelican who can help you guide through it, because they should be willing to do that. That's part of our job. Yeah, I think you answered that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Fergus. Now we'll hear from Fial.
Thank you. I've actually heard that too. And so I was interested and looked up to see if there were different kinds of pelicans. And it turns out there's 8. There's a brown pelican, there's an American white pelican. But in all seriousness, I think Sir Fergus has it right. There's different things we all do. And it was just kind of a bad joke that we'd say that. And I think all of us, now that we've seen this question, are going to go, that's not the type of service that I'm used to doing. And all of us, I think, will help you find someone that does the service that you need to get to where you want to go. But I was interested to see that there were 8 kinds of pelicans, so that did help me out very much on that. But I think Fergus answered the question the best way. It's a good thing for us all to be aware of as pelicans and to answer in a different way.
Thank you. We have 2 questions that are very similar, so I'm going to read them both out, and our 2 panelists will answer in parts, just for clarity. So, why does it seem like people are made pelicans for fewer large acts of service, and people with long-term continual service seem to be overlooked? The next question Why does the council ignore the whole career of a very service-oriented individual who doesn't get recognized despite being active and heavily service-oriented for over 40 years across four more kingdoms, while someone who is only 10 years into the society and doesn't equal their service yet gets Pelican with service in only one kingdom? Our first panelist to answer those questions for you is Fial.
Thank you. Part two seems very, very specific, and they have people, very specific people in mind. But I think I'm going to roll a bunch of everything into it. Comparing two people's journeys is very difficult. And thinking that you've seen everything that the Pelicans Council has seen, and the Pelicans Council thinking they've seen everything that you've seen, it's not reasonable. So two things I'd like to say is, one is think of what we might have not seen and write in about it. And then also think of what we're looking for and what we have seen. There is such a thing as effective service. I think Mistress Catherine mentioned a bit of it earlier. If you do service, but all there is bodies left in your wake of people that you might have gone through, or if you haven't been as effective, then really that's not effective service. That's not a Pelican. 40 years of service in 4 different kingdoms, that can get lost. And that's where we should, have you write in and tell us exactly what you've seen. But again, realize that there's other things we see as well, and there's more than one opinion on any candidate. And at the end of the day, I've already said this, we don't decide. We advise. We do not decide. The Crown decides. And apart from all of that, the Pelican, again, I've said this before, it's a step on the journey. Some people don't need to be a Pelican or don't want to be a Pelican. And some people just aren't ready for it. And we try and advise the Crown and let them know when we see someone that's ready. And we're imperfect too. We will make mistakes. And that's why we ask that you write in. You can write in directly to the Crown. You do not have to put it through the Pelican. You can talk directly to the Crown. And they will listen. They might not agree with you, but they will listen. And that's all we can do. It's not the perfect system, but I don't think there is a perfect system. I think we try and work within what the system that we have and do the best job we can. And some people miss it sometimes, but then we catch them. And that's because of people writing in and being concerned. Don't stop being concerned. Don't stop writing in. We still care. I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Fial. And now we'll hear from Fergus.
Hi. So I'm going to agree with you all. It seems very, very specific. So, and I don't want to speak to a specific case as I don't know everything about it. So I'm going to speak a little more general. The first part of the question was, why does it seem like people made Pelicans for fewer large acts of service and people long-term committed are overlooked? I don't know if I completely agree with that. Looking at the council, most of the people I see sitting around there are what you'd consider grinders. They're people who go in, day out, and they've been doing service for years. I would say that the people that are perhaps noticed more are the people who do the large acts because they're a little flashier. But I would, if you look at the Pelican Council on the whole, with the 25 or so active Pelicans we have, most of them are continuous long acts of service. So I don't really know if that's a scene thing. Whether or not the people get overlooked, that is something I'll speak to because it ties into both. I'm a huge advocate for having somebody on council to speak for them. It doesn't have to be an actual protege. relationship. It doesn't have to be anything formal. If you think you've been overlooked, if you, like the person in the second, well, I'm assuming the person in the second part of the question, if you've had 40 years of service across 4 kingdoms, you should have somebody on the council who essentially beats the drum, keeps a record of your SCA career, a person who can, between the inconsistencies between crowns, because crowns are only there for 6 months, 9 months if they happen to hit this extra meeting. So you have somebody who can keep that consistency, who can constantly advocate. If you don't have somebody advocating for you, somebody reminding us of what you've done, I'm sorry, you actually will kind of get lost in the noise, because we can't keep records on everybody in the kingdom. We have 600 people to look at, because I'm a firm believer that everybody who plays can be a Pelican, because we all do some level of service. So in 600 people, we need somebody to come to us and represent you. People don't have to be a protege to become a Pelican, and they probably never will, and I'm fine with that. But you have to have a voice. You have to have somebody who can sit there and go, hey, we already talked about this. We talked about this person. Hey guys, remember, we have this 40 years of service, don't forget. And we'll keep that person in front of us so we can actually track what they're doing. If you don't have a voice and you don't want to be a protege, befriend a Pelican. I mean, if you want to be a member of the order, you're going to have to learn to get along with at least one Pelican at some point. So find a Pelican, talk to them, say, I don't want to be a protege. If you don't want to be a protege, you don't want anything formal, but ask them if they'll at least be your voice on council. And you would be surprised how far a voice goes, just because crowns change. Members of the council change from what event they can or can't make. But if you have an advocate who constantly tracks you and makes it their personal goal to remind people what you have and have not done, I think you'll find that you'll go a lot farther. And that person will also be able to take back the little things that you may not know. It might be a reason for this person is not a Pelican. It might be something to do with their PLQs, or they're missing just one thing. The council may have discussed it, but it's not getting back to that person because they don't have an advocate on that council. Explain to them, no, you need to do this. Hey, somebody saw you do this. Your PLQs need to work here, etc., etc. You don't have that feedback, it's going to be a much longer road for you. So anybody who does want to become a Pelican, or is even thinking about that peerage as a road, they should contact a Pelican, any Pelican that they're comfortable with, and maybe not enter a formal relationship, but at least have somebody who can speak for them to the crown, to the rest of the council, and perhaps even carry their resume around, so that when they do get a question asked on the council, like, hey, what's this person doing now? Somebody has an answer. Because if everybody looks at each other and goes, I don't know, once again, we have 600 people in this kingdom, roughly. Well, less than that, we're just counting members, who we are looking at almost all the time, and we'll lose you. Right? It's kind of reality. And it's sad, but it's true. Thank you.
Thank you, Fergus. Well, Avacal, that is the end of our question and answer period. I'd like to thank the Order of Pelicans for their thoughtful discussions, and to our panelists for your time to answer the questions that were given to us by the populace of Avacal. If you haven't heard an answer to a question that you have, please reach out to myself, a companion of the Order of Pelican, or anyone else that you trust to share your questions with us. I would like to also thank the populace of Avacal for all the questions you are asking. Please don't stop the dialogue. Please stay tuned next week for the next Ask the Peers, Master of Defense edition. Well, good night, Avacal, and thank you.